Welcome, dear learners. Today, we will discuss the third module of the MOOC course on skill development of the youths and their livelihood. The title of this module is The Present Status of Livelihood Opportunities in India. After going through the video of this module, you will be able to define or conceptualize the term livelihood, understand the existing livelihood scenario in India, explain the various livelihood promotion schemes of the government, discuss the emerging areas of livelihood, analyze the impact of COVID on livelihood avenues, and also discuss the ways to overcome this crisis situation. Let us first begin with an understanding of the concept of livelihood. In simple words, livelihood implies the basic means of obtaining or fulfilling the necessities of life. It is a source through which individuals sustain themselves and their family. The Cambridge Dictionary defines livelihood as the way someone earns money he needs to pay for his food, clothing, shelter, etc. So being a means of sustenance, livelihood therefore is a vital need for one's living. The term livelihood is often used interchangeably with other terms like employment, work, and so on. However, all these terms do not imply the same. All these terms do not convey the same meaning. Livelihood differs from employment in the sense that, employment means working under somebody, working for an organization or for an employer against payment. When a person works for somebody, works for an organization and gets payment in the form of salary or wage in return, it is employment. But livelihood does not necessarily mean employment. One may not be employed, but may work in his own farm, in his own agricultural field, in his own enterprise, and earn money required for his survival. Okay? So, for livelihood is a source that brings money, that brings the resources necessary for one to sustain himself and his family. So, livelihood in itself is not employment. Employment is only one of the sources of livelihood. For example, a shopkeeper, a tailor, a farmer who works in his own enterprise and earns money, is not an employee of anybody else. His own enterprise is his source of income. His own enterprise is his source of livelihood. So, employment is only one source of livelihood, but livelihood in itself is not employment only. It is a broader category. Livelihood is a broader category that includes all sources or avenues that enables an individual to earn his living. So, we have come to know that livelihood is not synonymous to employment. Now, in the same way, though the term livelihood is used interchangeably with the term work, but again, work and livelihood also do not mean the same thing. Work as a concept, it encompasses both paid and unpaid activities. Now, it is important for us to know here that not all human activities are paid. For example, the home bakers who work day in and day out at home, who caters to all the needs of the family members, do not get get any remuneration, do not get any payment for their service. But that is work that they are doing. So work includes all those activities which may or may not be paid. But payment is the key to livelihood. If it has to be livelihood, it has to be paid. So payment is very, very essential for livelihood. It is livelihood only when it brings or fetches money. So livelihood is not similar to work in the sense that livelihood includes under its ambit only those activities of man which generates income or earning. It includes only those activities of man which are paid. Okay, but work entails those activities which may or may not be paid. Thus, in a nutshell, we can say that livelihood is nothing but an income generating source or activity in which individuals engage themselves for their living. We hope that you have understood the concept of livelihood and how it differs from other similar terms like employment, work, and so on. Let us now discuss the existing livelihood scenario in India. As you all know, India is a diverse country, diverse in terms of its population composition, geography, culture, so on and so forth. Similarly, the country's economy is also highly diverse. It is one of the fastest growing economy in the world, and there exist varied forms of livelihood avenues in the country in which the people are engaged in. The source of livelihood of people depend upon their educational attainment, skills and capabilities, geographical location, and so on and so forth. To understand the existing livelihood opportunities in India, we have to first understand that India is geographically diverse. It is divided into rural and urban areas. Accordingly, the livelihood avenues differ in both the context. In rural areas, people are mostly engaged in agriculture-based livelihood. They are engaged in agriculture and allied activities. For example, farming, cultivation, poultry farming, dairy farming, handloom and handicrafts, fishing, so on and so forth are some of the livelihoods in rural areas. From this, we can say that people in the rural areas are primarily dependent on nature, particularly land and forest, for their livelihood, for their day-to-day survival. Their livelihood is based on nature and natural products. The situation is very different in the urban setting. In the urban areas, people are mostly engaged either in government sector organizations or private organizations. They occupy jobs in different government and non-government or private organizations. They work in industries, they work in companies, they are engaged in hospitality services, so on and so forth. So, in the rural context, the avenues of livelihood, as we have already discussed, is agriculture based, which we categorize as the primary sector in the Indian economy. So, and in the urban context, people are mostly engaged in the secondary, that is the manufacturing sector, and tertiary, that is the services sector. So based on this discussion, we can say that the Indian economy is categorized into three main sectors. The primary sector, which is related to agriculture, the secondary sector, which is related to manufacturing, and the tertiary sector, which is related to the services. And livelihood opportunities of people in India revolve around these three sectors. They are engaged in these three sectors either as owners or employers, as employees or workers, or as self-employed. After this, the Indian economy is again divided into two more sectors. They are organized and unorganized sector. The basis of distinction between organized and unorganized sector is the nature of employment, is the kinds of rights or the kind of working environment that an employee gets while working in these organizations. The term organized and unorganized used in the Indian context is known as formal and informal sector in the international context. The organized sectors includes those enterprises or organizations which provides regular and assured job or employment to people. These are government registered organizations which mandatorily follows the rules and regulations laid by the government, including service rules such as working hours, pay scales, leave rules, retirement rules, social security benefits, so on and so forth. These organizations follow formal procedures and code of conduct. Therefore, the people working in the organized sector, they enjoy a greater sense of job security, social security, and employment benefits. Contradicting or in contrast to the organized sector is the unorganized sector, which refers to those production and manufacturing units, mostly small-scaled in nature, which do not provide employment in regular terms. The National Commission for Enterprises in the Unorganized Sector, in its report on the conditions of work and promotion of livelihoods in the unorganized sector, has defined the unorganized sector as that sector which consists of all unincorporated private enterprises owned by individuals or households engaged in the sale and production of goods and services operated on a proprietary or partnership basis and with less than 10 total workers. In the same report, it has conceptualized the unorganized sector workers as those working in the unorganized enterprises or households, excluding regular workers with social security benefits and the workers in the formal sector without any employment or social security benefits provided by the employers. From these definitions, we can define our unorganized sector as small-scaled production or manufacturing units, informal in nature, and employing workers not on regular terms. The workers in the unorganized sector lack employment and social security benefits. Their jobs are mostly low paid with hardly any employment benefits. So now, after understanding what is organized and unorganized sector, it is important for us to know that unorganized sector in itself is not a homogeneous one. Different categories of workers come under the unorganized sector. The National Commission for Enterprises in the Unorganized Sector has classified different groups of workers in the unorganized informal sector. The first category is the wage workers in the unorganized sector. This category comprises of the people who are employed as unorganized workers directly by the employer or through agencies or contractors. They include casual and temporary workers, migrant workers, or those employed by household including domestic workers. Wage workers also include regular workers in the unorganized sector. They are paid remuneration against their work. The next category is self-employed in the unorganized sector. These are persons who operate farm or non-farm enterprises or engage in professions or trade either on own account, individually, or with partners, or as home-based workers. Own account workers include unpaid family workers too. The third category is the unprotected wage workers in the organized sector. Unprotected workers in the organized sectors are mainly those workers in the categories of regular, casual or contract workers who remain unprotected because of the non-compliance to the provisions of the existing laws. The fourth category is that of the regular unorganized workers. This category comprises of those working for others and getting in return salary or wages on a regular basis. The Indian economy is further divided into public and private sectors depending upon the ownership of assets and service delivery. The public sector is the one in which assets are owned by the government and the responsibility of service delivery also lies upon the government. In contrast, the private sector, the assets are owned by private individuals and companies and they are responsible for the services. Post office and railways are examples of public sector, while Reliance, Tata, all these are examples of private sectors. So individuals in our country again are absorbed in public or private sectors. From this discussion, we have understood that there are different sectors within the Indian economy which provides livelihood opportunities to the people of the country. However, despite the existence of these sectors, labor force participation in India is not very satisfactory. There exist several livelihood constraints among the people in the country. Some of these constraints are: the studies have shown that there has been economic slowdown in the past few years, mostly caused by deceleration in the manufacturing sector, sluggish agricultural output, sharp decline in the real estate sector, so on and so forth. And this economic slowdown has resulted in job cuts, lower wages, etc. Secondly, India has been witnessing a continuous decline in the labor force participation. Periodic labor force survey has shown that there has been tremendous decline in labor force participation of working age population, and this is more in terms of female labor force participation. Again, there has been a rising unemployment scenario in the country which has posed a big challenge. Periodic labor force survey has highlighted that the difficult job situation with 6.1% of India's labor force and 17.8% youngsters between 15 and 29 years reported to be unemployed in the labor force. However, job creation or expansion has been very limited, particularly in the public and organized sectors. This has led to fewer job opportunities for people. A comparison across the countries shows that India's employment ratio at 34.7% is much lower among its peers in the other emerging economies. With less employment, majority of the people are now sustaining themselves by working in the unorganized sector with lower wages and no sense of job security. Agriculture and allied activities have become unproductive over the years, and their contribution to the gross domestic product has declined tremendously. The agricultural growth rate has been low at an average of 2.9% from 2014 to 2019. This shows that the sector of the economy in which most people find work is characterized by low productivity. It has given rise to a situation where people are now looking for livelihood opportunities outside agriculture. People have started shifting from distressed agricultural sector to informal economy. Even the slow agricultural growth has accompanied serious dips in the wage growth. The overall livelihood scenario in India, therefore, is not very satisfactory, and much needs to be done for the people of the country, particularly the youths, to provide them with meaningful employment and social security. Let us now discuss the livelihood promotion schemes of the government. As we know, around 60% of India's population falls under the economically active age group between 15 to 59 years, which is otherwise considered to be a great asset for the country. Now, to obtain optimum benefits from its population power, India needs to expand its economy in such a way that it generates enough employment to productively absorb its youth population. In this direction, the government has taken initiatives to promote livelihood avenues. The different livelihood avenues, there are many, but let us discuss a few of them. One is the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, commonly referred to as the MNREGA. This act aims to guarantee right to work. The act was passed in September 2005 to provide for enhancement of livelihood security of the households and rural areas of the country by providing at least 100 days of guaranteed wage employment in every financial year to every household whose adult members volunteer to do unskilled manual work. The next is the Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Act 2006. To promote self-employment as a means of job creation and to promote entrepreneurship for further job creation, the MSME Act 2006 was enacted to facilitate the promotion, development and enhancing competitiveness of micro, small and medium enterprises. Through this, the government has over time implemented policies for promotion of small industries, which include providing concessional credit, training in entrepreneurship development, marketing assistance, etc. Another scheme floated by the government is the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi or PM Kisan. It is a flagship scheme of the Union government launched in December 2018, under which financial benefit of Rs 6,000 per year is provided to small and marginal farmers. The scheme aims to supplement the financial needs of the farmers in procuring various inputs to ensure proper crop care commensurate with anticipated farm income at the end of each crop cycle. This would also protect the farmers from resorting or availing to informal credit and ensure their continuance in farming activities. Another very important initiative of the Indian government is the setting up of the National Skill Development Mission to harness to demographic advantage and making youths employable, the National Skill Development Mission, together with new National Policy for Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, was launched in the year 2015. The mission is focusing on creating a pipeline of skilled people, upskilling and reskilling to align supply for demand, advocating National Skill Qualification Framework to facilitate certification according to common and global standards, and so on. The main emphasis of this mission is to skill or to provide skill-based trainings to the youth for a sustainable living. Similar to these schemes, there are many other schemes like Stand Up in this scheme, Aspire scheme, Mudra scheme, Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. All of these focus on creating more employment, making youths skilled, providing them necessary training, providing them financial assistance so that they can fetch for themselves a livelihood avenue which is sustainable and meaningful. Along with these schemes, there have been a number of initiatives taken by the Indian government to create newer opportunities, newer avenues for livelihood generation. So there have been emerging areas of livelihood avenues, emerging avenues for livelihood in India. Let us discuss some of them. One is the Digital India program, which has been launched to provide broadband connectivity in rural and urban areas. Introduction of digital rural connectivity would give a big boost in developing traditional rural crafts, art, or other innovative ideas into business models. One of the objectives of National Broadband Mission is to promote direct and indirect employment through development of digital economy and digital communication infrastructure across the country. So the emphasis here is on making India digital to help people or to facilitate people find ways of, digitally conducting their business, or taking benefits from the digital world to sell their products, to promote their products, so on and so forth. Another very important emerging area of livelihood in India is the startups. The government has come a big way in promoting the startups. Startup is a company which is in its first stage of operation. Government, in order to motivate the youths in the line of entrepreneurship, in order to encourage them to develop their entrepreneurial skill and become entrepreneurs, have started providing them training, financial support, and required other assistance so that they can set up their enterprise and fetch themselves a sustainable living. So startup is another very, very important and significant area which is emerging as a livelihood opportunity. Another very important avenue of livelihood that the government is focusing on is Make in India. With its slogan on Be Vocal for Local, the government is prioritizing on local products so that it gives the indigenous people, the people of the country, to exhibit and sell their products, to sell their handicrafts and fetch for themselves an income generating source. So Make in India has come a big way, and the emphasis is on local products. So these are the different emerging avenues of livelihood through which people can find ways to sustain themselves and their families. As we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic has had tremendous effect on our livelihood. Apart from being a health hazard, it has been an economic hazard too. It has constrained economic growth and has affected the economy of the country. The lockdowns have paved the way to job cuts and pay cuts. There has been tremendous fall in the earnings. People have been suffering from food insecurity, economic vulnerability, and so on. To recover from this condition, though the picture appears gloomy and there has been lesser job prospects now, there seem to be lesser job prospects now, we need to ponder upon ways through which we can find ways of employment, ways of being self-employed and doing certain things which would help us earn money for our survival. Now, what is the way forward? How would we be able to tackle the distress caused by COVID? To overcome this situation, one of the most important thing is skill development. The people, particularly the youths, need to be trained and they need to be equipped with skills. That is the need of the hour. Only by equipping themselves with required skills and talent, they can be made productive so that they can fetch a livelihood for themselves. The youth need to be trained in entrepreneurial skills. They need to be made aware about the different emerging livelihood opportunities. Digital literacy needs to be expanded. These are a few, but certain mandatory things that needs to be done. That is the need of the hour to overcome the COVID-led economic distress that we all have been facing. So the way forward is for a sustainable living, training and skilling the people of the country, particularly the youth, is the way forward. Thank you.